Wanted, Cat Assassin by Jason Rezos. Craigslist, Portland, pet listings, wanted, cat assassin. Seeking expert cat assassin for two medium-large size cats abandoned at the residence beside me. Address redacted, Portland, Oregon. The ideal candidate's expertise in cat extermination will go beyond simply tossing them into a burlap bag and chucking them into the nearby Willamette River. Though the University of Portland campus is just 2 blocks away and offers ample and scenic cat-tossing vistas, I have found that cats disposed of in this manner demonstrate a possible, albeit slim, chance of reappearing upon the stoop of their former residence. A successful candidate will propose a solution that is both foolproof and affordable, while relieving me of the tedium of cat carcass, entrails or viscera strewn about my adjacent property. The more stoic of the pair, nothing short of a feline facsimile of Wilford Brimley, we call Mr. P. This cat took up residence on my own front porch immediately on my arrival, and provided himself with a comfortable rocker chair, upon which he remains interred to this day. Despite the preponderance of hair and possible flea larvae, this was not an issue until late this summer, when it became clear that my neighbour had in fact vacated the premises and left both Mr. P and his associate, Ned F, to their own devices. A telephone call to my former neighbour, now residing in Bethesda, Maryland, revealed that he had not, in fact, abandoned his formerly cherished pets to a cold and hostile Portland winter. He'd merely placed his home upon the real estate market, and, upon its subsequent sale, would return in the batting of an eye to take his betrothed feline companions on to future residence. He assured me that his absence would last not more than 6 weeks, despite the paltry odds of the sale ever transpiring. While quaint and venerable, the wrap-around porch and jutting second-story dormer speaks to a bucolic aesthetic, discordant among North Portland craftsman-style homes. He followed these copacetic statements with a request that I simply fill 2 small porcelain receptacles found upon the tedious porch with a serving of dried cat food each day. Being the polite and amicable neighbour that I am, I obliged his request, with nary a mention of recompense. I set forth a portion of feline sustenance each morning, which was not a difficult task to remember, given the consistent arrival of Ned F, perched upon my fence, staring into my upstairs office window each morning with incessant and perturbed meowing. Mr. P, being the more gentlemanly of the pair, remains to this day entrenched upon my porch. He leaves his cushy chair only to feast upon dribbles of cat chow intermittently deposited into his bowl each morning, and will no doubt prove a substantially easier target for the qualified cat assassin who ultimately procures this contract. Please note, it has come to my attention that another cat, ashen-coloured, thin, and no doubt stray, has taken to finishing off morsels of food unconsumed by the 2 left in my stead. What befalls this unsightly waif concerns me not. Please refer to the enclosed photographic samples for identifying the target cats in question. Upon this discovery, and presuming other vermin of the neighbourhood take full advantage of my hospitality, I phoned my former neighbour and voiced my dissatisfaction with our arrangement, already well beyond the scope of its intent. Though a full 8 weeks had passed, he yielded to my benevolence and promised this would not continue much longer than the remainder of the month, or perhaps a fortnight thereafter. The day of this late return arrived upon the final waxing of the October moon, a date coinciding with All Hallows' Eve. I arrived home late, as is often the case with my job, where I formulate synthetic catalysts for a chain of Northwest Bromide laboratories. As my vehicle turned the corner of my drive, I espied the gaunt silhouette of a tabby cat cutting across the stark glow of the gibbous moon. In a fit of anger, I chased Ned F. from my property with a charred broom handle. This display inadvertently gave a coterie of trick-or-treaters the false impression I would indulge their wanton beggary. They shambled forth, these doddering children, lurid eyes peering behind masks, filthy tarpaulin sacks agape. "Begone, foul denizens of this pagan night!" I hissed, waving my burnt truncheon. At once they scattered into the adjacent alleyway. Now, fully agitated, indeed rattled by this affair, I sought refuge in my home, poured a dram of laudanum-infused Macallan to quiet my nerves, and resolved to phone my neighbour for a third time. Upon his answer, I discovered he had by now given up on any possibility of a sale, and now defaulted to renting his former home. He thanked me for my continual filling of the cat's feed bowls, despite the profound dereliction of our agreement. Finally, he mentioned that he had taken up a position as a labourer with an Appalachian mining company. Provided he could save enough scrip to meet the necessary gasoline allowance for retraversing the continent, I could expect his return prior to the conclusion of November. Rest assured, he told me, should the house find new occupants, he would return post-haste. Both he and his insipid felines would together bask in the wealth of rentier bounty that would afford residence elsewhere on the North Portland Peninsula. Having my own reservations, I took to placing bits of king salmon and Dungeness crab upon a length of string and teasing it out across Lombard Boulevard. But neither Mr. P nor his cohort Ned F were apt to chasing these treats into the oncoming traffic. As you may well imagine, this failed ordeal cemented once and for all my own insufficiency as a cat assassin. Hence my untimely and urgent request via this advertisement for a professional hitman of the feline variety. At this late point of the season, now approaching the winter solstice, the behaviour of the cats has taken on a certain aspect of desperation. While Mr. P remains steadfastly ensconced upon his cherished rocker recliner, Ned F has fancied himself a hood ornament, which is to say he frequently seeks out the warmth of my automobile's motor via residual heat of my long commute, borne out by the metallic hood. I do not doubt that this was a fortuitous discovery for the poor creature, yet it remains insufficient in remedying my quandary. Despite several efforts to contact my neighbour via telephone and parley the matter with him personally, time and time again I reached his voicemail. I eventually left a recorded message, requesting the whereabouts of his forwarding address and indicating my courtesy in wishing to forward along Mr. P and Ned F's ashes after making arrangements for their untimely euthanasia and subsequent incineration. This message was met with immediate action. I was at first mollified when my laconic voicemail resulted in remediation of the issue. The very next morning my phone chirped with the notification of my neighbour's call. Upon answering, he at once relinquished me of all responsibility filling the porcelain bowls with kibble, and informed me that his septuagenarian parents would drive from their home in Lake Oswego, a full 20-minute commute, in order to fulfill this routine task. Now, while I did not personally entreat visitation from Elijah and his loquacious wife Priscilla, I falsely presumed this would bring remediation to the issue once and for all. Now, just 2 days later, upon my windowsill this morning sprung Ned F, mewling for his meal. Elijah and Priscilla have yet to meet their first appointment. As usual, he pleaded his want for dryness, warmth, and other amenities afforded by the indoor life unjustly wrested from his existence 3 months prior. Speaking to the matter of the requisitioned cat assassination, remote as the likelihood of necropsy may be, I cannot be held accountable for accusations my neighbour may level for my involvement in their deaths. Furthermore, I trust that any cat assassin reading thus far would surmise that an incident of the accidental and tragic sort is most preferred. I admit that my own unfamiliarity, indeed my own ignorance of cat physiology and its inherent weakness, prohibit me from conveying a preferred methodology of riddance. Nevertheless, I remain committed in my goal of snuffing out their lives, however many, up to and including the 9th. I advise the potential candidate that I have found these creatures uncannily shrewd, despite Mr. P's tendency towards slothfulness, and that an effective solution may very well entail a curved blade, swung from a length of cord, fitted upon a sort of motion-detecting camera or other apparatus. Such a booby-trap could easily find canned tuna fish or anchovy as sufficient bait for either victim, as both have, time and time again, demonstrated a weakness for gluttony. Finally, I must confess that often, in my musings, whilst laying awake in my satin-draped canopy bed, listening to the howls of Ned F. in my upstairs office window, I have devised in my mind a trebuchet-like device wherein a sliver of raw fish, nibbled by tiny feline mandibles, would activate a series of pulleys and sling forth the cat victim several zip codes into Washington state. I have drawn up a handful of viable blueprints and schematics for such a cunning apparatus, and will gladly share these should the nature of this extermination project prove appealing. I leave this, and the request for any possible solution to my ills, upon you, the competent cat assassin.